G'day, how's it going? So with the Season 4 Reloaded update, we saw a lot of stealth changes to the weapons, the TTK, and it really just balanced everything out, and there's a lot more options when it comes to your loadout now. I'll be going through the top 5 best loadouts for you guys to be running. Let's go. I'll run you guys through the equipment and the perk packages because they'll essentially not really change too much depending on your playstyle, and throughout the rest of the loadouts, they'll pretty much stay the same. But when it comes to the tactical, the only real option here is smoke. There's not any other options here. However, with the lethal, if you're running Resurge or Vondel on small maps, I'd always take the throwing knife, even on big map. I like saving them bullets and getting them thirst with a throwing knife, but there's a lot of good options here. So the Semtex is really good when you've got someone sitting upstairs, or drill charges when people are holding buildings. They can really come in clutch, or grenades if you're a weapon with them. As for the perk package, I always run overkill because you need those 2 weapons. Well, not anymore, but yeah. But we always run overkill. Bomb squad, you can swap and change, so you can either run bomb squad or double time here. If you are running low on plates and you notice you're always down on plates and you're not near buys on big maps, scavenger can come in clutch as you pick up them extra plates. I definitely pick out a double time and bomb squad. As for the third perk here, my favorite is resupply, as I can just spam those smokes around and use them however I want. And if you lose a throwing knife or your grenade, it's always coming back. But another good option here is fast hand. It helps you use those equipment and swap weapons a lot faster, and you reload faster. That's a great option. And as for the last one, I like high alert. That way I can just run straight where I'm going, and I know if someone's behind me looking at me or to my side. I don't have to look around. I don't have to be on a swivel with my head. Ghost is a great option, but they've countered that with bird's eye now, as if you have the bird's eye perk, you will be seen when you've got Ghost and you'll pop up on the map. And another good option, especially in Vondel and Ashika Island, is quick fix, as with the 150 health, get a kill or anything or start putting a plate in, you'll regenerate that 150 health straight away, so that can come in clutch as well. Generally, my build is overkill, bomb squad or double time, resupply and high alert. Now onto the build. So my main build, which is my #1 build that I'm running all the time, we've got the MP5. This thing's got incredible movement, getting around the rack, really quick aim down sight speed, and a very quick TTK. As for the recoil in this one, super easy to control. Just got slight back and forth, but pretty much vertical. So this is the build here. We've got the F-Tac castle muzzle to help out with that horizontal and vertical recoil. I've got the lock grip precision here, as it helps out a lot with that hip fire actually recoil control, as this thing you will be hip firing, and it really helps out with that hip fire and the recoil. This thing helps out a lot on horizontal bounce if you try it out. We've got the laser, the VLK 7mm laser for that aim down sight speed, aim stability and sprinter fire speed. We've got the 50 round magazine here, obviously for that ammo capacity. And then we've got the mirror recoil 56 factory stock to give us that aims, idle stability, recoil and sprinting speed, so it helps out with that movement around the map. As for my secondary, the main thing I've been running lately is the sniper, so I'm running the MCPR 300. It's my personal choice here. You can also run the intervention. I just prefer the MCPR. It's a single shot to the head with 3 plates no matter what. There isn't too much idle sway with this thing. Try and line it up with the center here, and I'll let go. And that's pretty much as bad as it gets when it comes to idle sway with this one. Pretty easy to move around, and you've got a pretty quick aim down sight speed. So I run the Nilsound 90 muzzle here. It adds to that bullet velocity damage range. We've got the 22-inch barrel for that damage range and bullet velocity again. We've got the FSS OLE laser for that aim down sight speed and aim stability. As for the sight, I've got the Forge Tac Delta 4 optic. It's a 5 times magnification. It's got a very small glint, so it helps out with that without being seen, and I just got a clean reticle. You can, however, swap these sights out to whatever you want. If you're not the best sniper and you don't know how to pick your shots, the Raptor FVMW can help out, as it does tell you the distance to your enemy and it puts a dot where you need to aim. But this is a very big sight and gets in the way, and I'm just not a big fan of it. And lastly, the thing that makes this sniper a one hit to the head is the explosive rounds. But be warned, it does impact your bullet velocity and you get a lot more bullet drop with the explosive rounds. Now moving along to our second build. This one is built for recoil, so people who can't control recoil, this is the ultimate loadout for you guys. I've got the FSS Hurricane, which recently came back into the meta TTK with a 608 millisecond TTK, which is right up there with the MP5 ISO and all that, given that you get one headshot in the mix with your shots. So this one's another one, pretty good movement, reasonably quick aim down sight speed, but the best thing about this thing is it had pretty much 0 recoil, as I'll show you now. Pretty much the same, just slight vertical movement. So we've got the asserter compensator for that horizontal recoil control. We've got the lock grip precision here as well. It helps out with that horizontal recoil and the hip fire accuracy, which really helps out with SMGs. We've got the FSS OLE 5 laser here. I've got the Cronin Mini Pro, just because I'm not a big fan of the iron sights of these things. They are kind of like the M4, so if you can handle the iron sights, if you do want to take out the optics, you can put on stocks. There are a few stocks. The Demo Quicksilver stock would be the one I'd run generally. It's got that sprinting speed, aim down sight speed, and a lot of positives, but you do lose a bit of recoil control. And then you've also got the Demo Quicksilver Collapse, which gives you even more, but it makes the recoil on this thing a lot more noticeable. And lastly, we've got the X10 grip for that sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed. Got the Lockman 556, so this one thing's got decent movement, an alright aim down sight speed. It's not too bad, but where this thing shines is it's an absolute laser. Even with my crappy aim, I make it look pretty good. And as for the recoil on thing, this is one we've done testing to try and find the optimal build for recoil control.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
So as you can tell, it is
Yikes.
an absolute laser with no recoil. So to start off, I've got the FTAC Castle Com muzzle, which really takes out any horizontal or vertical recoil this weapon has. We've got the 15.9 Lockman wrap barrel, which helps out with recoil control, bullet velocity, and damage range here. I've got the 5.56 high velocity ammunition to add to that bullet velocity and help this thing slay on our Mazra. We've got the AMOP version 4 optic. Obviously, when it comes to optic, it's all personal preference. Pick whichever one works best for you. I find the AMOP has the least visual recoil, and it's got a nice clean reticle. And then lastly, we've got the 60 round magazine. You can swap it out for the 40 round magazine. I just prefer having them extra rounds if I miss my shots. Moving along to our third build. So we've got the RAP H light machine gun. So this thing is a lot slower than all the other options we have. A bit slower to aim down sight speed, but the recoil is pretty easy to control. Can beam people at most ranges. And when shooting up against the board, this thing pretty much just goes vertical with barely any horizontal bounce. This thing has a very quick TTK. If you're into LMGs, this is probably my go-to for LMGs. So we've got the SA Leveler 55 muzzle for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. We've got the FTAC Ripper 56 underbarrel for that aim idle stability and recoil stabilization. We've got the 7.62 high velocity ammunition, obviously for that bullet velocity. I've got the AMOP V4 optics again. And then lastly, for the rear grip, we've got the Lockman TCG 10 for that recoil control. This build pretty much turns the wrap into a laser and there's not too much recoil. Now, as for the secondary on this one, so we've got the X13 auto pistols. So this thing has the quickest TTK bar the Basculus pistols, but they only have a very close range. This thing you can actually take gunfights out to 17 or more meters and still have a reliable TTK. So we've got the DZS open comp muzzle to help out with that horizontal and vertical recoil. This weapon does have a lot of recoil, which is why I ended up going with the XRK Sidewinder 6 slide barrel. So it helps out a lot more recoil control, I found, than the Impact. So this is the one I went with, and it has less cons than the Impact. However, if you do want to run the Impact, it does allow you to put a stock on it. But without that Impact barrel, you can only run these attachments here. But I'll show you a comparison a bit later, swapping out this barrel to the Impact and putting a stock on and getting rid of the optic sights, and you can make the decision for yourself. So I've got the Sidewinder. I've got the Cronin Mini Pro optics on this weapon, just because when you're firing with this barrel, it makes it really hard to see your opponent, whereas with the optic there, it makes it a lot easier. I've got the Cronin Lima 6 rear grip here to help out with that sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed, and with that fast draw, it really makes up for the slow movement of a big LMG or something. And we've got the 50 round drum here because you're going to be blasting through the ammunition. If you did want to get rid of this barrel, you can put the Impact on, then you take the Couch Whip stock, which gives you recoil control and aim walking speed. But I'll show you a comparison right now. All right, we'll go ahead and compare the X13 with the Impact barrel and the X13 stock. So it's got a very clean iron sights with the Impact barrel. It does impact your movement a little bit, but it's not too bad, and the aim down sight's pretty good. But when it comes to firing this weapon, as you'll see, the dummy plates are on 3 plates. Really hard to control, and I only got 1 and a bit. He took another 20 rounds there to kill him. Now, as for the recoil with this, I'm going to start over here because this thing has a very high to the left recoil. So that's the recoil on the impact barrel. Now, if we swap to the sidewinder barrel, which helps out recoil, we've got a quicker movement speed. Aim down sight speed is just as good with this one, but when it comes to actually firing this thing and aiming it practically, as you can see, I've got a red dot here so you can see your target. And we get the 2 kills on these dummies with a single mag. And when we look at the recoil control, it's a lot more vertical and easier to control. For me personally, if you can control that horizontal, that's for you to decide. But I find this barrel a lot better to control, especially with the sight on it, as you get that better sight picture. Up next, we've got the Vaznev 9K, so another high TTK submachine gun. So this one's probably got the best movement out of all the other weapons. Quickest aim down sight speed. And it's not too hard to control either. Here's its recoil. One goes slightly up to the right, as you can see, but still very easy to control. We've got the Lacerda compensator here for that horizontal recoil control, as this thing doesn't have too much vertical recoil control. We've got the Kaz-1 254mm barrel for that damage range and bullet velocity. This really helps out over them longer ranges, increases the TTK over range of this weapon. I've got the Ultrazac stock here for that aim walking speed and sprinting speed, just to help out with that movement around the map. Got the True Track rear grip here for that sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed. And we've got the 45 round magazine, as you really need it when you're playing Warzone, as you can only take 1 or 2 battles with the 30 round, and then if there's more than that, you're pretty much screwed. Now, as for the AR with this one, we've got the Cronin Squall. So this thing currently has the quickest TTK out of all long range options. Its movement speed isn't great, aim down sight's alright, but this thing kills quick. Bit more recoil than the others, as you're about to find out here. Kind of got the opposite recoil pattern to the Rap H. As you can see, this thing goes up and to the left with barely any horizontal bounce here. So we've got the SA level of 55 for that horizontal and vertical recoil control. Got the HR68 barrel to help out with that damage range, bullet velocity and recoil control again. FTAC Ripper underbarrel, again for that aim idle stability and recoil control. We've got the AIM-OP version 4 optic, and then we've got the 50 round drum magazine here. Now moving on to our last loadout, but not least, we've got the ISO 45 submachine gun. I've built this as a sniper support, so this thing really fries, has minimal recoil and can be used at long range to drop people at a quick TTK. Thing's got reasonable movement, quick aim down sight speed as well, and pretty easy to control when reaching out of them ranges. And as for this one's recoil, pretty much straight up as well, just slight movement to left and right. So we've got the FTAC Castle Comp for that horizontal vertical recoil control. I've got the 9-inch PTX Trainer barrel for that damage range, movement speed, bullet velocity, making this thing an absolute laser. We've got the Edge 47 underbarrel grip for that aim idle stability and recoil stabilization. Got the 45 round drum for that ammo capacity, obviously. And then we've got the A30 Stout rear grip for added recoil control. You can swap this out for the EXP shear grip to add that sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. I didn't notice that big a difference, but I did notice a difference in the recoil control, so I went with the A30 Stout. Now moving on to the last long range option we have, it's the SO14 here. So to get the quickest TTK out of this thing, you do need to run it in full auto. Got a decent movement and aim down sight speed, but it does kill pretty quick. You just have to learn to control that recoil. And if we go to full auto against the door, the biggest thing with this thing is it's got a lot of visual recoil and they jump up a lot more than the others, as you can see. But once you learn to control it, it's pretty easy. If you do struggle, however, you can use it in semi-auto. But it doesn't have that practical TTK that we're talking about, and does drop down the stats a fair bit when you're in semi-auto, because you can't get as quick as when you're full auto. So this thing has one of the quickest TTKs, especially if used in full auto, but it has a lot higher skill gap and the recoil is a bit harder to control when you're at full auto. So we've got the 22-inch bore master barrel here for that recoil control, damage range, bullet velocity. We've got the TY-LR8 muzzle to help out with that horizontal recoil control. The F-Tac Ripper 56 again here. This rip really helps out with the single shot semi-auto as it recenters a lot better with the Ripper. We've got high velocity ammunition here, but you can swap out the high velocity ammunition here and get in a 50 round magazine to help out with that ammo capacity, as it more than doubles the amount of ammo you have and really helps out. It just depends how you're going to use this weapon.
Woo! Ain't nothing to it but to do it. What are you doing here, man? Go check out my video of me dropping a nuke on our Mazra. It's sick. I'm working out here. Go on. Wait. Baby!